know you watched the draft last night. A lot of superstar potential, at least in my opinion. Who do you think has the most potential to be an impact superstar out of all the players that were drafted last night?
I think it's Lonzo Ball. I know a lot of folks are saying that he has a lot of, he even said it, and because of his dad, that he has a target on his back. Guys like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are talking about how they want to dunk on him, where his daddy's going to have to come and save him.
Yeah.
But I think in a year's time, in 2 years' time, at this point next year, he's going to have more talent around him. He may have superstar talent around him, and guys like Paul George and whoever knows else. That it's going to be easier. His strength is passing the ball. His strength is hitting a jump shot with that funky form that he has and rebounding. So nobody's going to look at him to go out there and light it up scoring-wise. They're going to look at him to facilitate an offense, and he's eventually going to have some great talent around him to help him do that real soon. So I think he may get the most attention. Obviously, you got Markelle Fultz, but I just think because of him sharing the limelight, especially also sharing the scoring load, people are going to pay more attention to Ball, and I think he may turn out with a good amount of attention over the long run.
Yeah, you mentioned that the fact that he might have a target on his back. But do you think now that he's been drafted that LeVar is still going to be as outspoken as he was before he was drafted? And if so, do you think that's going to have an impact on the way he plays the game, or is it just going to be like, whatever?
Nah. I don't have any inclination. Time will tell what happens with his dad. Who knows where he's going to be sitting in Staples. You're going to turn on a Lakers game on a Sunday afternoon, and they're gonna be putting the camera all up in his face wherever he may be, or he may decide to step back. At the end of the day, if this kid has a great career or any type of decent career, he's on his way into becoming a man. The older that he grows, I doubt that you're going to see his father all the way at the forefront, or he can be an outlier and just kind of be there the whole entire time. So time will tell. Success that he has on the court will tell, but ultimately I don't think it's going to have an effect on how he's treated as a basketball player. If he has as much game as we've seen that he has, his game will speak for itself. And I don't think there's going to be any extra level of competition because, people know who his dad is or that he talks trash. He may hear it, but if he can ball, after that, everything else takes care of itself. It don't matter who's chirping.
No doubt. So you said that Lonzo has the most superstar potential out of all players. I think it was a lot of surprises in last night's draft. More specifically, the Chicago Bulls and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I wasn't expecting Jimmy Butler to be traded for like a three-piece meal at Popeyes. I think it was the biggest winner, and who was the biggest loser of last night's draft?
That's tough. A lot of these dudes I may have seen play in the NCAA tournament. I may have caught them on a Saturday afternoon. I see the highlights, and even still, all of that much isn't necessarily something to draft something up, I think, and call these dudes or call some of these teams losers and winners based upon who they chose. If you want to talk about a loser, New York Knicks are perennial losers. It's always a situation of them of let's try this, and they try it for 2 years, and then they move on to something else. They're like the kid in the room who goes, oh, that's a shiny new toy. I got to play with that for a little while until they break it and got to move on to the next one.
Right.
And if you want to go for a winner, it is a team that you mentioned. The Minnesota Timberwolves look like they will be in contention next year, at least to get into the playoffs. You got a great all-star like Jimmy Butler, and it's somebody for the rest of those dudes with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins to pretty much look at. And now Tom Thibodeau, he has someone who he's rocked with for years in Chicago that he knows what to expect, and Jimmy Butler can pretty much spread that word. So they're probably going to have to add some depth to the bench. But if their starters can stay healthy and if they can contribute, there's no reason that the Minnesota Timberwolves shouldn't finally get into the playoffs. So I consider them winners, as well as the Lakers, who have they got cap space. They have their point guard that they want to hand the keys to the car over to. So this is going to be a transition year for the Lakers, but I would consider them winners as well. Them and the Timberwolves winners, New York Knicks, Bulls losers.
Now, you talked about the Knicks being perennial losers. They drafted the guy from France. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Frank. I'll try.
Ntilikina.
Ntilikina. All right, I can't say that 5 times fast. But they drafted him with Dennis Smith and Malik Monk still on the board. I'm having trouble even like following what Phil Jackson is doing with the Knicks, and I can't even make sense of it. But it seems like to some point he's even trying to sabotage them or not put them in the best position. Do you see that as well?
No, I don't think it's a matter of sabotage. I think it's a matter of ego and a matter of being stubborn. He's drafting, and well, at least last night, he's drafting and pulling in players that he believes can fit his mold and fit his system. And he's totally ignoring what's going on with basketball today in lieu of what he's won titles with, even though he wasn't an executive who put those teams together. So it's a funky situation right now with the New York Knicks. We don't know how long Phil Jackson's going to be around. He's going to collect whatever's left on his contract and be out the door. But he's selecting players that he thinks can fit and properly execute his system without too much brushback. Kuzminskis, Hernan Gomez, Kristaps Porzingis, even if we want to ignore a lot of what he's spent the past couple days doing, almost threatening him or publicly punishing him by going with this trade stuff. And now last night, Frank Ntilikina. So he's trying to pull in dudes who are going to, just do the job. And, Kristaps Porzingis bucked a little bit, but obviously pulling in someone like Ntilikina is saying, hey, we think we have a better shot continuing to run the show and saying that we're in charge, not the players, but going with someone like Ntilikina or Dennis Smith or Monk, who people have question marks in regards to both guys.
You talked about the situation with KP, and let's suppose what it was. It kind of was a threat when he had the conference on MSG. He talked about KP skipping his exit meeting and that. Then he had to do what was best for the team, which could be a little frightening for Knicks fans. In your opinion, is there any reasonable trade out there that would justify him moving Kristaps Porzingis right now?
No, not unless he's going to get back an established all-star. I don't see any reason. There's really no fit. And it's almost like, okay, if you're going to go young, or if you were to go young and go for draft picks, multiple high draft picks, you're trading potential for potential. Even though Kristaps has played in the NBA for 2 years, you have an idea of what you have. You have an idea of what he could be. So I don't think there is anything worth value out there. The Knicks may be in a wash situation if they were to go about trading him. But now that time has passed, it looks like they did what they wanted to do potentially, and it's put a scare in him. It seems like they had high demands, if you want to believe some of the reports that were out there. And it just looks like we need to let you know that we the boss, not you.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So you talked about Phil making the boss moves. And free agency is coming up too. So there's going to have to be a lot of decisions made. And do you think Melo is going to still be a part of the New York Knicks at the beginning of next season?
I was talking with someone about this earlier today. If he is still on the team over the next 3 weeks after free agency, when we get into the middle of July or so, going towards that back end of July, moving towards August, if he's still on the team, I see him sticking with the team. I think the only option left after that is to buy him out and let him go where he wants to go. But basketball matters aside, the way that he's been treated by Phil Jackson, I'm not mad at him if he wants to stay just to spite him.
Right.
You know, he wanted to come to New York years ago. He's here. He's played here. Obviously, things haven't worked out basketball-wise, but it's beyond belief to have a GM say, "Hey, it's time for this guy to take a hike." You know, he's better off somewhere else. I applaud the guy for being frank, but he's not all that bright in it, Phil Jackson. And I would not be surprised if Carmelo Anthony was on the team to start the season.
Definitely. Free agency is coming up in a couple of weeks. What team most needs to make a major move in free agency?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, every team. I mean, we know who the top two teams are, and they don't necessarily have to make major moves in free agency. The Golden State Warriors have some choices that they have to make. And their players who just won the title have to make some choices, whether it's Kevin Durant, how long and for how much does he want to re-up to allow the Warriors to still have some flexibility to keep people like Andre Iguodala. You know, someone like Steph Curry's probably going to go to full max. And then you look at another team, probably the only other team that's going to compete, especially in the Eastern Conference. You look at what they're doing with the Cavaliers, and you say, oh, well, they don't have so much flexibility. They're probably going to have to roll and go with the trade. So it's real interesting. Every single team has to make moves. I think a lot of what we're going to see is based upon more trades of superstars as opposed to this guy's a free agent. We got to see what happens. Is Chris Paul gonna leave? The Clippers to go to San Antonio? I mean, who knows? Is Dwayne Wade is he really gonna opt in? Is he gonna opt in and ask for a trade mid-season because the Bulls are rebuilding, or is he just gonna say screw this?
Right.
So I think a lot of it's gonna deal more so with trades than outright player movement, especially when you talk about some of the big players. The Hawks in a similar situation. Somebody like Paul Millsap, is he going to go sign somewhere? Does he sign with the Hawks and then get traded? So it's quite a bit of wiggle room. I think more trades than signings over the next week.
You think Paul George stays with the Pacers, at least for this season?
I think it's tough. I have no idea. You know, we know he's out the door. It's just a matter of when. I mean, can you show up to work every day where, you know, the fans are going to look at you and go, who the hell is this guy? He don't even want to be here.
I think that's going to be real awkward.
Yeah, it definitely will be. You know, that's like still showing up and living at your girlfriend's house after you told her, you know what, it's best if we not be together no more. You know, that's going to be a real awkward situation. So I don't think you put things out like that unless you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be mad or surprised if he went somewhere for 1 year, like a Cleveland or a Boston, and then said, okay, either I like it here, I want to stay, or I'm still going to be on the way out the door. But it's hard-pressed for him to go to Indiana, face the media, face the fans, and do that for 5 or 6 months and then get traded. So I can't see him lasting with the team past February, even if it gets to that point.
Definitely. Got one last question. I want to step away from basketball. You saw how taking Honda worked for the Philadelphia 76ers. Just to see what's going to happen with them, and if the process has actually been proven to work. But it seems like the Jets are kind of doing the same thing. They let Brandon Marshall go. They let Eric Decker go. David Harris. A lot of key guys. A lot of the good guys that was actually on the team. Do you think that tanking in football can work as it does in basketball, or is it a bad move for the Jets?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if tanking works anywhere. I mean, if you bad, your ass is bad. I mean, this team, you want to look at a team like the Cleveland Browns, we could say they've been tanking for a long time. And that hasn't worked since they brought that team back. We don't know if this tanking is going to work for the 76ers. It'll work if these guys stay healthy. It looks like they have a pretty decent core of young guys to build around. But they got to stay healthy first. And the reason why it's been such a long rebuild is because somebody like Joel Embiid has been hurt, or Jahlil Okafor comes in and the NBA changes. So we don't know if tanking is going to work. In the case of the New York Jets, they ran into an odd situation a few years ago. By happenstance, they ended up being a good team. I think they went 11-5 or 10-6 when they had Fitzpatrick, and they decided to pivot and say, "Oh wow, we actually did good. Let's try to continue." When they expected that to be kind of a rebuilding year, and so that started their development for about 2 seasons, and now they really have to start from the ground up. You know, when you look at any great team in professional sports, one thing that they have all the time is continuity. They have somebody who's running the show, whether it's a Belichick, a Popovich, you want to look at the Steelers, the Rooney family. They don't change coaches every 5 years. I think they only had 4 coaches in the past, maybe 50 years or so. And you gotta give good people a chance to run a situation. You can't consistently have turnover. And so maybe the Jets can hopefully build this. Maybe they'll be bad enough, as we expect them to be this season, where they can get a transcendent talent at quarterback who just can say, hey, this is your ship for the next 10, 12, 13 years. And time will tell. But after this season, I don't think the Jets can get any worse.
Yeah, I think where they messed up at was when they paid Fitzpatrick the amount of money that they paid him. Because historically, Fitzpatrick is like, you kind of just don't know what you're going to get from him. He's either going to have an amazing season like he did in 2015, or he's going to have a horrible season like he did in 2016. So, I mean, I think that's where it kind of went downhill for them was last year. Did you think that was a good move by them to re-sign him for that amount of money?
Well, I think they actually did save a little bit of face by not giving him the contract that he wanted and basically signing him to one that said, here, prove it. And, well, they gave him that short-term prove-it contract, and he's gone. And they saw the things could have turned out one of 2 ways. Fitzpatrick could have turned out to be good like he was in that first year, or he could have turned out to be pretty bad. And the whole team was pretty bad, and it kind of forced their hand to not accept the mirage of we have a solid winning foundation. We need to get younger. 2 years ago, him playing well was a mirage, and they're paying for it right now. They're going to pay for it for the future. But these are things you can't, if my house is falling apart, there's only but so much, spackle I can do. There's only but so much boards I can put up on the outside of the house before I say, you know what? I got to rip this sucker down, and I got to build something up with a firm foundation instead of just saying, oh, well, it lasted another hurricane, so we good, And that's what the Jets is doing right now. You can't deal with that. You gotta actually build something and go for it.
No doubt.